She was a warm, bubbly, funny, intelligent, and artistic person. Most of all, she had the biggest heart of anyone I've ever known. When she would pass an unhoused person on the street, she would literally give them her last dollar, or at least stop to acknowledge them and see how they were doing if she didn't have any money on her. She was a language arts girly, a poet, an avid reader. She was politically outspoken, and that carried through in her writing. She loved hip-hop and R&B music and would write raps in her poetry notebooks, saying she wanted to be a rapper. She had a strong sense of humor and the most contagious laugh. She was young at heart, but she was also just young. She lived for only another few weeks past her 25th birthday. When I myself turned 25, it wasn't the joyful milestone that...
You can look at me while I'm talking. That's what Amanda told the monster sitting in that courtroom. A man who for years pretended he was just another guy in the neighborhood. And now, after decades of waiting, the tables have finally turned. We all knew this day would come, you know? Just like I know that deep down, you've always understood. There are creatures walking among us that the elite and the powerful protect. This wasn't just a sentencing. This was an unmasking. Families of the victims of the Long Island serial killer finally got the chance to face the man who...
And I can transfer that right into my bank account. Upside's frequent users earn an average of $254 back a year, which is amazing. To start getting your cash back, click the link in the description or scan the QR code that you see on your screen and use our promo code CrimeFix to get an extra 25-cent bonus on every gallon on your first tank of gas.
I'm Anjanette Levy, and this is a special edition of Crime Fix coming to you from Suffolk County, Long Island. We're here at the courthouse, and this is where the victims...
That feeling in your gut right now, that's justice. But it's also the beginning of a much darker file they don't want you to know about. To understand the pure evil sitting in that chair, you have to go back to the wound, the moment where the lives of 8 young women were erased. Not just physically, but from the public's memory by a system that didn't care because of how they made their living. Sandra Costilla, Karen Vergata, Valerie Mack, Jessica Taylor, Maureen Brainard-Barnes, Megan Waterman, Melissa Barthelemy, and Amber Costello. These weren't just names on a police blotter that sat gathering dust for over a decade. These were vulnerable women who were targeted by a sadistic predator precisely because of their small size and because they worked in the shadows. You see, the murders began way back in 1993 with the death of Sandra, and they stretched all the way to 2010 when Amber was taken. That's a span of almost 20 years.
Sadness, not knowing where she had went and why I did not have her in my life. I don't remember her voice or her face or the love she gave me as a baby. I never had my mom to see me on my first days of school. I never had her when I graduated. I never had her when I needed her, and I will never have her in the future when I need her.
Maureen's sister described her as deeply insightful. She vanished in 2007.
Nothing could have prepared me for the day that Maureen didn't come home. At first, I kept telling myself that she would call at any moment, that everything would somehow be okay. But as days turned into years, that hope slowly faded into a devastating reality. After years of searching for Maureen, my world shattered. The day my sister was found in the brambles on the side of a dark, lonely highway. She was not just murdered, she was a victim of a predator, a serial killer. This was not just a murder, this was a calculated, unimaginable evil. It was a shock so profound that my mind and body could not process it. Because when Maureen was identified, it meant facing the truth that she was gone forever. And that pain is unbearable. I lived with survivor's guilt for over a decade. I replayed every moment over and over again in my mind.
Megan Waterman's aunt described how her niece came to be a sex worker.
Megan was being prostituted by Akeem Cruz, a pimp who disguised himself as her boyfriend. And because of his trafficking of my niece, the prisoner who sits in this courtroom today.
She told him he tarnished the relationship with her mother, that her mother was afraid to let her leave the house because of the monsters like him. She hoped his short-lived life was haunted by the fact he'd never have a real relationship with his own daughter. She was forced to live with crippling anxiety, a destroyed nervous system, checking the back of her car every time she drove, her heart skipping a beat anytime a blocked number flashed on her screen, because Heuermann had called her from Melissa's phone after killing her, taunting that family like a coward. But when you sift through the rubble of this story, you stumble upon a legend, an unlikely silenced hero.
Rex Heuermann is a sadistic serial killer who targeted women he could easily overpower because of their size and the work that they did. His victims suffered immensely. Their deaths were likely not quick. He admitted to strangling each of his...
That hero is Amber Costello. Before her death, Amber did something that the elite profilers and the FBI couldn't do for years. She tricked Rex Heuermann, and she outsmarted him in more ways than one. If it were not for my sister's street smarts, her family said, the task force might still be on the hunt. Amber's quick thinking lit a match and ignited a rage inside that egotistical, evil narcissist. The immoral man couldn't handle being outwitted by a woman he saw as disposable, and his unbridled anger at being fooled caused him to expose himself.
Size and the work that they did. His victims suffered immensely. Their deaths were likely not quick. He admitted to strangling each of his victims. And his computer searches showed searches for torture pornography, depicting both children and adults. The image he portrayed as a family man from the suburbs was simply a facade.
This is a defendant who meticulously planned the murder of 8 young women. He obsessed over every detail as a means to both prepare for the next murder and also to relive the twisted gratification and sick pleasure he derived from taking the lives of 8 young women. There is nothing the defendant can say or do in this courtroom that could mitigate what he has taken from those women and their families. Any remorse shown is insufficient and far too little. It is all too little and too late. As the court is aware, the defendant has permitted certain information to trickle out.
He started hunting her. And that slip-up, that inability to control his demonic pride, is what ultimately led to his identification. Her sacrifice brought victory to that courtroom. And while the FBI was busy looking the other way, it was a woman society ignored who solved the case. It makes you wonder, doesn't it? Why is the hero of this story being memory-holed, while Peacock and 50 Cent's production company are paying millions of dollars to the killer's ex-wife and children for a documentary series? The cash flow to the family of a serial killer is completely disgusting and inexcusable. And it shows exactly where the corporate media's loyalty lies.
I do, however, want you to understand that even though you were able to commit these horrendous atrocities against our daughter, and no matter what sense of power or control you felt over Valerie's body, you were never able to touch her soul. I'm telling you,
Now, let's drop the real names and the real documented events, because this is where the facts get terrifying. During the execution of the search warrant, the task force recovered electronic devices that contained a planning document so cold it reads like a shopping list from hell. They call it the HK2000 file. Behind the suit and tie, Heuermann was a sadist, meticulously honing his craft by studying John Douglas's Mindhunter textbook, treating it like a student cramming for an exam to learn how to be a better killer and avoid capture. A forensic examination of his computer revealed a list titled Things to Remember. This wasn't scribbled madness. This was a calculated, ritualistic blueprint. It stated, sound travels. Control the amount of air in and out to control the noise made. Get sleep before the hunt. Too tired.
We thank Your Honor for allowing us, alongside the other grieving families, to address the court today regarding the profound impact the loss of mothers, daughters, and sisters has had on our lives. Receiving the news about my sister and the manner in which she was discovered is a level of devastation from which we will never fully recover. Today is a deeply meaningful and long-awaited day, not only for Sandra's family, but for the other victims' families: Amber, Valerie, Karen, Jessica, Maureen, Melissa, and Megan. It was always my hope that the person responsible for destroying our family and the families of so many would someday be held fully accountable, and
that involved searches for torture imagery depicting both children and adults. The FBI's Behavioral Analysis Unit is still trying to figure out what made him a monster. But the question you should be asking is, how many times did the system shake his hand and let him walk because he looked professional, courteous, and appropriate?
To produce a docuseries that paid millions of dollars to the prisoner's ex-wife, daughter, stepson, and their attorneys is completely disgusting and inexcusable. When I read about this, I was both sickened and shocked and deeply disturbed.
When it came time for Rex Heuermann to speak, he stood at the judge's order.
Stand up. There are no words I can say. I am responsible for what was said in this room today. The words I would say have no meaning, and I'm going to leave it there at this time.
Speak up.
His own ex-wife, Asa Ellerup, had to go through a long process of almost 2 years before she came to grips with the fact that her husband is a serial killer. For a long time, she didn't believe it, but finally, he admitted to her in person that he was responsible for all 8 homicides. Even the lawyers who visited him a dozen times in jail described him as articulate, personable, and having a sense of humor. That's the terrifying truth the elite don't want to admit. Evil doesn't wear a monster mask. It wears a suit, tells jokes, and shakes hands with people while planning to dismember women. If a man can hide that in plain sight while attending school...
That I could see the woman she would have become, that I would have hugged her tighter the last time that I saw her, that she could know my son, the trips us and my sister could have had, the memories we could have continued to make. Instead, I try to remember her through the memories that I'm lucky to hold on to. I pray to her and I leave flowers in memory of her in the places that she was left behind.
I'll never forget how I felt when I got that call. I couldn't wrap my mind around the word torso. No way could someone do that to someone I love. Torso. Headless and handless. These words haunt me. Our prefrontal cortex had barely finished to form. Torso? I thought that was a midriff. It's a chopped up body. No way. Disgusting, awful, terrifying, monstrous, brutal. What? Parts of her are all over the place missing? They didn't find all of her? All of her.
Maureen Brainard-Barnes' daughter Nicolette spoke about her mother's warmth, her bubbling personality, her love of hip-hop and R&B, and the fact that she would give her last dollar to an unhoused person on the street. She talked about the jarring pain of turning 25, realizing she had now lived longer than her mom ever would.
It becomes quite clear he was not a fearsome predator, but rather a cowardly opportunist. The prisoners planned to erase Megan, Maureen, Melissa, Amberlynn, Jessica, Valerie, Sandra, and Karen backfired. Because of his vile and cowardly actions, our loved ones will be spoken of for years to come with love and reverence, not only by their families and friends, but by millions of people around the world who now mourn their loss.
And Megan's daughter, Liliana, spoke of the mother she never knew. She was just a toddler when Megan disappeared in June 2010.
My name is Liliana Waterman, and I'm the daughter of Megan Waterman. My mother went missing when I was just 3 years old. Her body was not found until I was 4. She was taken from me during the most important years of my life. A little girl needs her mom.
Dylan, Maureen's son, was just 1 year old when she vanished. His earliest memories defined by anxiety and fear, never having his mom for his first days of school or graduation.
I never got the chance to know what it was like to be comforted by her after a bad day, to hear her advice, or to grow up with her guidance and love. I was not fully aware of the horrific details of what had happened until I was around 9 years old. How do you tell a child that her mom was brutally murdered? I remember sitting at home in 4th grade, scrolling online when I came across an article about her. That was the moment I truly understood what had happened. I remember asking my grandparents what the word prostitute, pimp meant. In an instant, my world was shattered. My heart broke all over again. I have spent 16 Mother Days without my mom.
Jessica Taylor's cousins described her as pure sunshine, but they are haunted by the word torso, headless and handless.
Headless and handless. I still don't understand. That weekend, she was supposed to come home. That weekend, family and friends were looking for her. Loved ones were calling her. She wasn't going to miss that weekend. She never picked up the phone. She didn't call anyone back because of you.
The family of Amber Costello provided a statement to be read.
Before Amber Costello's death, she tricked Rex Heuermann in more ways than one. If it were not for my sister's street smarts, Task Force United to catch the serial killer could still be on the hunt. Amber's quick thinking lit the match and ignited fits of rage in the egotistical, evil narcissist, Rex Heuermann. The immoral man sitting before you today could not handle being outwitted by Amber Costello. My sister's actions led this hidden murderer to show out in fits of rage. His unbridled anger for having been fooled by Amber caused Rex Heuermann to not only hunt Amber, but also hunt my daughter and me. Although my daughter, myself, and countless others escaped Rex Heuermann's cold, calculated clutches, my sister, Amber Lynn Costello, paid the ultimate price. However, her sacrifice and soul brings victory to this courtroom because she has strength in Jesus Christ. Although the exact details of what happened to our treasured Amber after she said her last goodbye to friends as she climbed inside Rex Heuermann's avalanche, I know her blind faith in Jesus Christ helped her endure the mental.
Her body parts were scattered, and some were never found.
I have lived thousands of days without her. I am now the same age my mom was when she was first pregnant with me, and I realized just how young she really was. I feel as though I have barely begun to understand life, yet she was denied the chance to live hers. Rex Heuermann did not just take my mother's life, he stole an entire lifetime of memories that me and her never got to make. He took away birthdays, holidays, conversations, hugs, advice, and every future moment a mother and daughter should have shared.
Valerie Mack's parents spoke about the loss of their daughter.
Mr. Heuermann, you have done horrendous things.
The cruelty of leaving a family to search for pieces of their loved one is a stain on this nation's soul. Yet these families stood there with strength in Jesus Christ, unbroken, looking a serial killer in the eye and telling him he is nothing. The judge, Timothy Mazzei, became a vessel for the audience's outrage. He didn't use polite legalese, he roasted him. He sentenced Heuermann to multiple consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole, ensuring the walls of a maximum security New York prison will be the last thing he sees.
I'm going to leave it there at this time.
Speak up.
Mr. Heuermann, as Mr. Tierney said, I know that you're sorry that you got caught. I assume that you're sorry for what you've done to your wife and children. Are you a little bit sorry for what you did to these poor innocent women? 8 women that you strangled to death? At least 8 that we know of?
But don't for a second think this is a closed file. The judge admitted the truth we're all thinking. 8 women that you strangled to death. At least 8 that we know of. The investigation into Rex Heuermann is far from over. There are other bodies out there, other grieving families, and a trail of destruction that stretches across state lines, potentially implicating a network that the FBI would rather sweep under the rug. Why did the task force take so long when they had the technology? Why is a streaming service pouring millions into the pockets of the killer's family while the victims' families get memorial tattoos and trauma? It's the classic move, keeping the attention on the salacious killer while burying the systemic failures. We need to stop saying his name. We need to stop putting his face everywhere. Put the girls' faces up. Put their names in the light. So here we are, left without a neat resolution. Just the open anger of knowing that a demon was hiding behind a white-collar mask. Rex Heuermann thought his meticulous planning and his elite connections would shield him from justice. He thought the forgotten women of Gilgo Beach were easy prey that no one would fight for. He was wrong. But this leaves us with a burning question, the kind that keeps you up at night and should drive this conversation forward in the comments right now. If a man can work in the heart of New York City, come home to a quiet street, laugh with his neighbors, and do this for nearly 3 decades without a single institution raising a red flag, who else is doing it today? How many more of these files are sitting on a desk somewhere, marked low priority because the victims were vulnerable? I want to know what you think is the real reason the media keeps trying to turn this monster into a celebrity, while